This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so I realized that I was remiss last week when we were discussing the Omer, that I left out an important component of the Omer, right? We discussed the Omer going from barley, going to wheat, from Pesach to Shavuot, that whole ascent. We discussed all of that, but I neglected, to Esther's peril, I neglected to mention the mourning component, right? This should be an exciting growth opportunity, and it's meant to be an exciting growth opportunity period that we go through. At the same time, there is another component that runs opposite to that. And there is a certain degree of sadness, and there's a certain degree of mourning that goes into this. And what is that mourning all about? Rabbi Akiva's students. 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva died during this time period, over these 33 days. And the Talmud tells us, the Gemara tells us, what was the cause of their death? Well, we don't use the term sinat chinam. That's right. Sinat chinam, basis hatred. That's what led to the destruction of the second temple. But the Gemara says, lo nagu kavod zelazeh. They didn't show the proper respect to one another. Right? It wasn't all the way down to a point of sinat chinam. Hello, Rose. Welcome on. Welcome aboard. Right?
Thank you.
But at the same time, they, on the level that they were on, they were not showing respect to one another. And therefore, what are the manifestations of this aspect of mourning? How does that reflect in a halachic manner during the days of Sefirah, at least until Lag BaOmer?
No cutting of hair, no listening to music, and no weddings.
Correct. We got to clear fast now. No cutting of hair, no weddings, no listening to music, right? What are the time periods when someone wants to plan a wedding? What are the time periods when on the Jewish calendar we can't have a wedding planned? Well, Yom Kippur, correct, but that's like all the Yom Tovim. We wouldn't have a wedding on a Yom Tov, as we wouldn't have one on a Shabbos. But as Esther mentioned, during the days of Sefirah, until Lag BaOmer, Lag is Lamed Gimel, the 33rd day of the Omer, and we'll have to understand that a little bit, right? That's a day when the morning stops. They stop dying. That's the day when you listen to music, right? Why did they stop dying? Because they all died, right? So we'll have to double back to that, and we will shortly. But the time periods wherein we don't have Jewish weddings are from until Lag BaOmer, until the 33rd day of the Omer, and then something in the summer, my friends.
3 weeks.
Good. During the 3 weeks. The 3 weeks meaning from the time of the fast day of the 17th day of Tammuz. What occurred on the 17th day of Tammuz, my friends? The walls to Jerusalem were breached. And what else happened? Going much, much further back than that. Some other stones that were broken. The luchot, the tablets, were broken when Moshe came down from Mount Sinai the first time and he broke the tablets. And that ushers in 3 weeks of mourning. Okay, 3 weeks of mourning, culminating, reaching its apex at the 9th of Av, Tisha B'Av, the date of the destruction of temple number 1, temple number 2, and going much back further in time, the date of
The spies.
the spies, right? The Chet Egel and right, the spies coming back with their slanderous report about Israel. We cried about not wanting to go into Israel. And therefore, Tisha B'Av, 2 times, we cried over our having to leave Israel. Okay? So during those 3 weeks, we don't have weddings. And during the time period until Lag BaOmer, we don't have weddings. Yes, Esther.
So I know that you've mentioned that some people observe those restrictions from the beginning of the counting of the Omer till the 33rd, but others from that day on, which is how you said that you do it.
Typically, not this year.
Can you explain
Yes.
the
Okay.
difference?
Okay. So the Gemara says they died during these days between Pesach and Shavuot. It's not clear exactly which days they died. The teaching we have is it was over the span of 33 days that they died. So there are 2 ways that custom of the abstention, staying back from haircuts and from music. There are those that say until the first 33 days, until Lag BaOmer, okay? And you get a little bit of a freebie the first 8 days, well, at least during Chol HaMoed, during Yom Tov, we're not listening to music. But on Chol HaMoed, being that it's Pesach, celebratory holiday, we can listen to music. But no, don't cut your hair, don't get trims, don't shave, all that. For those who need to do it for work, there are allowances. Okay? But so for the first 33 days, others go from the Rosh Chodesh of Iyar, which was this past Shabbos, and they go from then 33 days forward, which will bring us until Shavuot. So those are the different customs, because again, it wasn't clear exactly when they died. It was during this time period, so we dedicate. Okay, Lag BaOmer is a joyous day. What is the significance of Lag? Lamed Gimel, Lag, Gematria, Lamed is 30, Gimel is 3. The 33rd day of the Omer is a day of celebration. What is that day related to? That is the yahrzeit of the great sage Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the composer of the Zohar. He is buried in Israel in the northern city of, close to Tzfat, Meron. And on Lag BaOmer, I did it once. On Lag BaOmer, you buy a ticket, you buy a round-trip ticket from Jerusalem to Meron, and you don't go to the bus station like wait in line. Oh, where is the right? There's a certain spot in Jerusalem where there's bus after bus after bus after bus. Fills up, hits the road, goes out to Meron. When you're there, you stay for as long as you want to stay, and then you got your return ticket because there's a bus after bus after bus after bus returning to Jerusalem. Right? Hundreds of thousands. Tragically, last year or 2 years ago, there was a crowd. These crowds situations get dangerous, and there were a number of deaths that took place. Right? But it is a very holy place. Now, why are we celebrating on the day of his death? That was his request. Good, Mary. But why would that have been his request? And especially in the Sephardic world, that's very, very common, that on the day of passing of somebody, we have what's called a hilula, a celebration of sorts.
We're celebrating their life.
We're celebrating their life. We're celebrating their accomplishments, right? You know, it's interesting. It's pointed out. We do a big celebration when someone is born. Do we know where that kid's going to go? Do we know what will come of that kid? When a person leaves this world, and we understand leaving this world as crossing the Gesher HaChaim, crossing the bridge of life to the next world, when a person has lived their life properly, wow, they made it through the obstacle course. They did it. And now they're ready to go on to the next stage. Wow. So when it's a tzaddik like that, when it's a truly righteous person, the date of their passing is, like you said, Yoshi, a celebration of their life. Okay. Yes.
Just a quick question. So before all of that happened, before the death of Rabbi Akiva's students, the time of the counting the Omer was not a time of mourning,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So these traditions that we now observe, we would not have observed.
Correct. Correct. It's an overlay that came about at a later time. Right? So the reason you didn't answer, you were thinking back.
Exactly.
There we go. There, you were thinking back to that time. Yes. Okay. Okay. Yes. Now, but if we think about it, it's really strange. Because we mentioned the two time periods where we don't have weddings. 33 days and 3 weeks, 21 days. 21 days over the destruction of the first and second temple, and 33 days over the students of Rabbi Akiva? Isn't that a bit, aren't we overdoing it a bit? When a person loses a parent, loses a spouse, loses a child, loses a sibling, how long is the mourning for? 7 days, Avelis. Okay, and then we have, 30 days of further restrictions. And here we have 33 days because of the students of Rabbi Akiva. Seems to be a little bit strange. And there are many different ideas on this. But one is that, remember, well, we'll come to it soon, actually, what we're going to be doing soon, a Rambam. Rabbi Akiva was during the time of the Roman persecution, soon after the destruction of the temple. We were waiting for the Mashiach, for the Messiah to come. And we had a very strong potential Messiah. Who was that? Bar Kochva. And he was going to be the national physical warrior leading us. But along with that warrior, we needed to have our Torah warriors. Who were the Torah warriors? Right? The students of Rabbi Akiva. The students of Rabbi Akiva. So when we're mourning the death of the students of Rabbi Akiva, on a deeper level, what are we mourning? The generation and the opportunity for Mashiach that was almost tangibly felt, that was almost in our hands, that slipped through our fingers. That's what we're mourning. And when we're celebrating, we are celebrating the greatness of Rabbi Akiva. Because imagine Rabbi Akiva, 24,000 Talmidim, 24,000 students died. What would we have expected the reaction of Rabbi Akiva to be? Maybe I'll sell insurance. Maybe I'll sell insurance. Maybe it's time to find something else to do. But Rabbi Akiva found or brought 5 new Talmidim. One of them being Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And the others being the main sages that we hear throughout the Mishnah. And he rebuilt. And the Torah that we have, the Torah Shebaal Peh that we have, is through Rabbi Akiva and these 5 Talmidim. So it's also a celebration of the Jewish resilience. How we take a hit and a hit and a hit and a hit, and we took 24,000 hits and got up and kept on going. That's who we are. That's our power. That's our continuity. That's our strength. Okay, so that's what I left out last week when we were discussing Sefirah. Sorry.
A lot to leave out.
Once I get started, I kind of go on a roll.
Good.
Okay, now on the list of hashkafa things, what does hashkafa mean, guys?
Like Jewish thought.
Like
Like
philosophy?
philosophy,
Yeah, Jewish thought, Jewish philosophy, Jewish outlook,
mindset.
right? A mashkif, right, is someone who is a scout who looks out and sees. So an important thing that we actually discussed last Thursday night. No, that's mashgiach. This is with that's a gimel chet. This is a kuf and a fei, right? So what I'd like to do, and I'll share the screen over here. Yeah, I'll have to share the screen. Give me 1 second. And I like to go through with you, and this happens to be, no, not that. This happens to be, let me close this. This happens to be on the list of, on the RCC list. There we go. Sefaria. This is Maimonides, Rambam. Guys, you should get familiar with Sefaria, Sefaria.org. Right? They have an incredible amount of Jewish text. They have the entire Tanakh, Mishnah, Talmud, Midrash, Halacha, Kabbalah. I'm clicking Halacha, and I'm going to Mishnah Torah, written by the Rambam, and then I'm going to his Laws of Kings. 1 second. Which would be under Shoftim.
After Mishnah Torah, Rabbi, what did you select?
I'm looking now for it. 1 second. Under Sefer Shoftim, Kings and Wars. And I'm going to chapter 11. Maimonides, Kings under Shoftim, under Judges, Kings and Wars. And the Rambam writes as follows. And for time's sake, let me go into... Okay, let me share my screen with our friends over here. Give me 1 second. There we go. The Rambam writes as follows: Hamelach HaMashiach, the king, the messianic king, Atid la'amod, in the future will arise, ulahachzir malchut David liyashna, and will bring the kingdom of David back to its original state. Ubona behamikdash, what will he do? He will build the temple. Umekabetz nidchei Yisroel, and he will gather the scattered of Israel. V'chozrin kol hamishpatim biyamav, kashim, all the laws, observance of all the laws will go back as it was. We'll have a temple. We'll have all of that will come back. Makrivin karbanot, we bring sacrifices, and counting the sabbatical years and the Yovel, the Jubilee years, as all is stated in the Torah. V'chol mi she'eino ma'amin bo, the Rambam says, whoever does not believe. Remember, we had this in our 13 principles of faith in the Rambam. This was the last one, I believe. Whoever does not believe in him, or who is not waiting for his arrival, lo b'shanavim, he's not just denying later prophets, ela b'torah of Moshe Rabbeinu. One will be denying the Torah and Moses himself. The Torah says in Devarim chapter 30, God will bring back your captivity your remnants. V'richamecha, and he will have compassion on you. V'shav v'kibetzki will gather you. Again over there, if you be scattered to the edges of the heavens, God will bring you back. These are clear in the Torah, and they include the things that were said, that were expounded upon by the prophets. Also, he quotes from the parsha of Bilam, who came to curse Israel. Also, a reference there to the Melech HaMashiach, the king coming, etc. Okay, I'm going now to chapter 11, Rambam number 2. Okay, another proof, he says, by the cities of refuge, it says if God will expand your boundaries, you'll add on another 3, and that's talking about the future, when messianic times. Halacha number 3 now, of chapter 11. Al yaleh d'raitcha. Do not think Shemelech HaMashiach, that the King Messiah needs to do wonders and miracles and bring new things into the world or resuscitate the dead. Eina davar kach. That's not so. Because Rabbi Akiva, as I mentioned earlier, Chacham Gadol, was a great sage, Mechachmei Mishnaya, of the greatest of the sages of the Mishnah. Huayanose Kelav, and he would carry the arms of Ben Koziva Hamelech, Bar Kochva. The reason we call him Ben Koziva, Kazav means false, right? Something that was not realized. See, he's Bar Koziva because there were aspirations for him to be the Messiah, but it was not fulfilled. But Omer Alav, he would say about him, he's Melech HaMashiach. And Dimad appeared to all the Chachamim, all the wise of the generation, that he was the Melech HaMashiach. When was it apparent that he was not? Ad sheneherag ba'avanot. It was only once he was killed because of his sins. The Kevan shenerag, once he was killed, noda lehem she'eno. Then it's clear he was not the one. But, and we'll come back to this in a moment, come back to our discussion on Thursday. But until that point, the Chacham didn't say, do a miracle for us, show us a wonder, prove it. The Ikar Dvarim Kach, and this is the matter. Shah Torah Hazot, right? The Torah that we have, its laws, its judgments are for eternity. We don't add on to them. We don't detract from them, right? When Mashiach comes, it's not going to be a new covenant that some of us might have heard of, right? A new covenant that excuses us. That's not how it works. Now, interestingly enough, we had a whole discussion this past Thursday night. The Rambam says once he was killed, it was clear that he was not the one, right? I'm sorry? The Rambam said once Bar Kokhba was killed, it was clear he was not the one. Right there now, Chabad, Lubavitcher Hasidim maintain that, or many of them maintain that the Lubavitcher Rebbe, even though he died, he's still the Mashiach, and he's the one who's going to come back to life. And they make a little bit of a desperate reading of the Rambam. Oh, since he was killed, that's why he couldn't be. But the Rebbe, thank God, wasn't killed. The Rebbe died, so therefore the Lubavitcher Rebbe, they say, can be. It's clearly not indicated in the Rambam, Maimonides, that, because he was killed, he couldn't have been. Had he just died, they would have waited for him to come back to life and be the Mashiach, right? But that is the approach. Right? That's the Rambam. Now, halacha number 4, very important. V'im yamod melech beis David. If a king will arise in the house of David, Hoge b'Torah, who diligently studies the Torah, Osek b'mitzvot, and is involved in the mitzvot, like David his father, with the Torah shebichtav, following the written Torah, v'shebal peh, and the oral Torah, v'Yakov kol Yisroel leilech ba, and he will force literally, all of Israel to follow in the ways of the Torah. Ulechazek bitka, and will strengthen its foundations. V'yilachem, and he'll fight the wars of God. Such a person as Bar Kokhba was, he will be becheskat true Mashiach. Our assumption is he's the one who will be Mashiach. If he's doing all that, then he's in the running. He's the one who would say, it seems, oh, yeah, he's the one. In our generation, he's the one. And let me just say that it was fair to say when the Lubavitcher Rebbe was alive, it was fair to say that if there's anybody in that generation who most closely, not exactly, you need to be a little, he wasn't fighting the wars of God, but he was certainly strengthened Judaism, right? So it's very fair to say, I would even agree, that if there was someone in that generation until 1990 who we'd say, someone today is the Mashiach, who do you think it is? Then, if it was from a known righteous person, the Lubavitcher Rebbe would certainly probably be the number one candidate. Okay? To be fair. Im asa, if he did this, v'hitzliach, and succeeded, and built the mikdash, built the temple, built the third temple, and gathered together the remnants of Israel, then that's Mashiach. Then it's not just the number one person in the running. That is slam dunk. That is mission accomplished. He is the Mashiach. V'yatakein et ha'olam kulo, and he will correct, affix the entire world. La'avodat Hashem, to serve God biyachad, together, everyone together. As it says, az epoch, then I will change. The Tzafani says, I will change the attitude of the nations, and everyone will have a safa barura, clear words. Likro kulam, to all call out in the name of God, to serve him. Shechem echad, all literally one shoulder to shoulder. When that's what the Mashiach will do. Vim lo hitzliach adko, and if he did not succeed and do that, o nerag, or he got killed, biadua, then it's known she'eino zeh shifticha alav Torah. This is not, he was not the one that the Torah guaranteed. And he's like all the other kings of the house of David, who died. Right? And if we had a close call, then God only sent him in order to test the multitudes, to see that, right, as Daniel says, some of the wise men will stumble, right, to define, to clarify, until the appointed time, until the real time, because a set time is in the future. And now the Rambam speaks about Jesus and about Muhammad. This was censored out of many of the Rambams because our Christian neighbors and friends would have slaughtered us. But the Rambam writes, Af Yeshua HaNotzri, Jesus of Nazareth, that they thought he might be Mashiach and was killed by the Beit Din. Daniel already prophesied about him when it says, the vulgar among your people shall exalt themselves in an attempt to fulfill the vision, but they shall stumble. Is there a greater stumbling block than this, than Christianity? That all the Nevi'im spoke about the Messiah being the Redeemer of Israel, the one who will gather in our exiles, strengthen our mitzvot. And he did the exact opposite. And he caused a destruction for Israel by the sword, and a scattering around, and a degradation of Judaism. Ulahachlif Torah, and the Torah to be altered. All of a sudden, there's an old, outdated Testament, and there's a New Testament. So we never refer to the Torah as the Old Testament. It's the Torah. Ulahatot, rov ha'olam, and to deceive majority of the world to serve a God besides Hashem. Aval, he continues, but the thoughts, the intent of the creator of the world, ein koach ba'adam lasidam. Humankind cannot fathom it. Our ways are not his ways, our thoughts are not his thoughts. And all of these, all that came about through this Yeshua HaNotzri, this Jesus of Nazareth. Oops, sorry about that. Just 1 second. Are you guys able to follow along with me?
Yes, we can. I can see, Rabbi.
Good, good, good. Okay.
Yes, Rabbi, we're following.
Okay. But the ways of God and all that happened with Jesus and with that Yishmaeli and the Ishmaelite, She'amad Acharav, who came after him, Einan Ella, in God, right? His conjecture is God utilized that liyasher derech, to smooth the way, to pave the road for the King Melech HaMashiach, and to ready the world in its entirety to serve Hashem, to serve God together, right? As we had that verse from Tzfania before. How? Well, he says the whole world has already been, the whole world talks about the Messiah. Everyone knows about the concept of the Messiah. They got the wrong one. But everyone knows about the Messiah. And everyone knows about the Torah. They call it the Old Testament. Everyone studies. It's in every motel room. Just open the drawer. When we divrei mitzvot, everyone knows the words of the mitzvot. And these words, these concepts have spread to Im Rechokim, to the furthest flung islands. They know him and they discuss it. They're familiar with it. But they say, oh, yeah, the mitzvot were true, but they no longer apply. Or it's not for our generation. Or they say, no, it's hidden meanings. It's not meant to be taken simply. Or the Messiah came already and canceled it with a new covenant. So what happens is they have the base knowledge and then they have some nonsense on top of that. When the true King Mashiach will come, and he will succeed, vayarum, and he become uplifted and exalted, miyad, immediately, hem kulan chozun diodin. Then they will all understand and know shesheker nachlu avotayim, that they were taught falsehoods by their predecessors, that their prophets and their ancestors caused them to err. Okay? But they're not starting from scratch. Chapter 12. Let's bring it home. The Rambam then writes, don't think that in the days of Mashiach, the world will change. There's going to be a new work of creation. The world will continue as it goes. As it says in Isaiah, the wolf will dwell with the lamb, the leopard will lie down with the young goat. That is a mashal, that's a parable, the chida. In the Nadavra, meaning, who is the sheep? We, the children of Israel, are the sheep. Who are the wolves? The nations around us who try to devour us. Israel will dwell securely with those nations of the world who are compared to the wolf and to the leopard. And he brings a verse from Jeremiah along with that. V'yachzru kulam l'dat ha'emet, and everyone will come back to the true faith, belief. V'lo yigzlu, they won't be stealing. V'lo yashki, they won't be destroying. V'lo yochlu davar mutar b'nachat ella, rather they'll be eating, consuming, living peacefully together with Israel. As it says that the lion, like the cattle, will eat straw. V'chein kol b'yotze be'ela, all such things that we speak about the Mashiach, they are all parables. Exactly how are they meant to be understood? When the King Mashiach comes, Yivadal l'kol, it'll become apparent to all, le'eza davar yamashal, right? What aspect was the mashal? Uma inyan ramzu bahen, and what was it hinting to? The sages said there's no difference between this world and the world to come, and the messianic time, just shibur malchut, emancipation from our subjugation to the Gentile kingdoms. At the start of the messianic times, there'll be the Gog Magog, Armageddon, the war of Gog Magog. Now, there are those that say that this was spread out over time, and we've already gone through that with World War I and World War II. Who knows? Hopefully, we'll find out soon. Yes. And before Gog and Magog, there will arise a prophet who will guide us. As the last verse in Prophets says, the verse in Malachi, Hinei anochi sholech lachem et Eliyahu. I'll send to you Elijah the prophet. He will not come to say that which is pure is impure, or that which is impure is pure. He will not come and say, oh, these people, actually, there were some issues in the family line going up. There was the great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother who, some problems over there, right? And therefore, right, they're all not born out of wedlock, whatever you want to say over there, right? That's not what he's come to do. Elasum shalom ba'olam. Rather, it's to put peace in the world. As it says, he'll bring the hearts of the fathers to the children. Right? There are those that say before the Messiah, Elijah will come, right? And some will say right after. And all these things, the Rambam says, lo yada adam. No one knows exactly what. Exactly how it will be. Ad sheyiyu, until it happens. Udvarim stumhein, and these are hidden things in the words of the prophets. And even the sages do not have a clear tradition, right? They try these psukim, these verses indicate that, those verses indicate that, right? But a person should not get too involved in all these things because it doesn't help. And a person should not try to calculate the kates, the end, right? Because what happens? We calculate it, and then we're wrong, and then Klal Yisrael goes into a tailspin out of our dejection, out of our depression. In the time of the King Messiah, the kingdom will return, the kingdom of David. All Israel will be gathered in, and everyone will be yachsu kulam, right? And all of, and our yichus, our true lineage will be determined, right? What tribe are we from? I don't know. Maybe Judah. I know I'm not Levi. I'm not a Cohen or a Levi. Maybe Judah, maybe Binyamin. Maybe I'm from one of the 10 tribes, and my ancestors happen to be living in the Judah area, in the kingdom of Judah area, when the kingdom of Israel, right? I don't know, right? But he will clarify, right? He will say, amongst the Levium, this you're a Cohen, you're a Levi, and those who don't have the Yichus, you're like Ciner, just the Yisroel. What can you do? Happens. All right? That's what's going to happen. Right? And he'll ascribe us to our tribes. Right? But he won't say this person is tameh, is impure, this person is tahor. Right? If there was some great-great-great-great-great-great-grandma had an affair, and that gave birth to great-great-great-great, one generation less, grandpa, then guess what? Everyone's mamzerim. Everyone who they married, well, they're kids, right? I mean, who knows?
Saying he's not going to do that? What do you mean?
He's not going to say, sorry, right? Great-great-great-grandma. He's not going to disqualify anybody like that. He'll let you know what tribe you're from. But anybody who's a part of Klal Yisrael, part of the Jewish people, will remain a part of the Jewish people. Then he says, the sages did not hope for the messianic times so we can rule over the world, so we can rule over the nations, and not for not that they will honor us, not to be able to eat and drink and be merry, but rather that we'll be able to have this clarity and we should become penuyin. We should have the ability to focus on the Torah, on its wisdom, without any pressures, without those who will be pushing us away from it, in order that we can merit our eternity. At that time, there will not be famine, there will not be war, there will not be competition and jealousy. There'll be an abundance of good. It'll be all available. The dealings of the world will be to know God. And Israel will be the leaders, the chachamim, not the leaders, right, in terms of strength, the leaders in terms of wisdom, in terms of teaching, right? As it says, Ki mala aretz de'at Hashem, the world will be filled with His knowledge of God, Kimayim liyam echasim, as the waters cover. You ever stand by the ocean, you just see that incredible expanse of the water. As the waters cover the expanse of the ocean, that is how wisdom and knowledge of God, connection to God, will cover the world. May it be speedily in our days.
Will we still be working?
Huh? I don't think we'll have to do such an abundance of good. Yeah. You'll finally be able to retire, Basil.
You know what? You know what? Then you better come quickly. You better come quickly. You know? The other time, everybody's retired. None of us work.
My understanding is that
Okay, everybody still with us over there?
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
We're here, Rabbi.
All right.
my understanding
here.
is that in the days of Mashiach, we won't have any converts. We won't have like anybody who can be from one thing and move into another thing. Like spiritually, we're all kind of at the
That's
development point that
interesting.
we're at.
That's
The
interesting.
thing about
Yeah,
herds,
I
like,
was I was
where does
gonna
that?
ask that, Rabbi. What happens to the converts?
Anyone who converted, you got in under the wire, right?
Isn't there something
Right?
in that?
Yeah, but there will be righteous Gentiles then, those who will survive, right? There will be righteous Gentiles, and they too will be serving God, right? They'll be serving God as righteous Gentiles, I imagine, right? We don't speak about, right? The Maimonides did not speak about conversion at that point, correct?
Rabbi, I have a question about
Yes, Leticia.
these things that are written here. I read somewhere that perhaps Moshe will have a role in the last days,
Yeah,
when Messiah comes.
there
What?
are such teachings, right? We say, right, the Az Yashir song, the song by the sea that we sang, right, after crossing the sea, the pasuk says, Az Yashir Moshe. Then Moshe will sing. It doesn't say Az Shar, then Moshe sang. Az Yashir, then Moshe will sing. So yes, there are such teachings, and that, Leticia, I'd say, goes into what the Rambam said, that all of these different teachings that we have, once it happens, then we'll understand how what each one meant, how each one fits in. Yeah. Yes.
Isn't there a concept that anybody who's converted, their souls were Jewish?
There's a concept that Basil's mentioning, that there's a beautiful midrashic teaching that at Sinai, God approached the different nations if they wanted to receive the Torah, right? And their response was Ma Katuv Bey. Well, what does it say in there? Right? Whereas Bnei Yisrael, the children of Israel, said Naaseh. Yes, we'll do it. And now tell us what it says in there, with understanding that if God is giving it to us, it is beneficial. It can only be good for us. And the same way that no parent would ask of a child anything that's beyond the ability of the child, and will only ask of the child what's beneficial for the child. So we understood Avinu Shemaim, our Father in heaven, the same way. But, so the nations as a whole did not accept. But there were individual souls amongst the nations that did want to accept. And every single one of you here who is not born Jewish, you are descendants, you are the sole child of those individuals. And that is why throughout the generations, we have had amazing, amazing people who have joined our ranks. And I consider each and every one of you on that list of amazing people who are joining our ranks. So yes, Mr. Basil, there is...
They're all Jewish.
Not they are Jewish. They want not they are Jewish. They wanted Torah and were given their opportunity now, right, to actualize that and to become part of the nation of the Torah. Yeah. Yes.
Nice.
All righty. Good. We will call it over here, my friends. I am away next week, Monday and Tuesday. Okay, so in terms of Parsha and pastries, okay, and in terms of our Tuesday night class, that you can do. We can have pastries. You can also have Parsha. I just won't be able to supply it. The OU is flying a number of rabbis to Atlanta to have a meeting of some rabbis there. So I'll be leaving Monday afternoon and coming back Tuesday night. It's just a full one day on Tuesday in Atlanta.
Nice.
Yeah. To do
Safe
some
travels.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you very much. Is Natalie back? Natalie's coming back in 2 weeks from yesterday.
Oh, wow.
Oh, she just left.
Yeah. Yeah, she left before Shabbos. She left last week in order to get there before Shabbos, which is Wednesday evening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thursday evening cuts it a little bit too close. Leaving. Yeah. It's about 24 hours, right? Because it's about 14 hours flight and another 10-hour time difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Thursday evening doesn't work.
Yeah.
So it's got to be Wednesday evening. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Yes.
Thank
Good night.
you.
Bye.
Night. Thank you.
Good night. You're
Night.
very welcome. And it's good having Mr. Basil with us.
Yeah.
Laila Tov.
You learned a lot.
Laila Tov,
A lot
Rose.
of dense information.